Hello. Okay. Milo, you can't be doing that right now.
Hi.
Laura, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I need to get my dog to stop being obnoxious. Push the phone instead. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm like,
Yeah, maybe that's probably a dumb question to ask.
no, it's fine. It's just like it's also a reflex to be like, I'm okay, I'm good. But yeah, I mean, definitely feeling overwhelmed with everything. Just with like, trying to take care of myself, but also just like, yeah, I was not expecting this many people to see what I said. Like my friends were just like, oh, I encourage you to share this just like with your friends and your family so they know. And then like in days, just how this has blown up has been.
Why do you think people have just maybe because they're shocked? Because you're so young?
I think it's a combination of things. One, I think there are a lot of people that are shocked, which I think is ridiculous. And like is a big part of the problem because there's been like overwhelming proof and just like evidence of this happening, like especially in the Black community, which like I also just want to preface like this is not my platform, and like I just want to use like share my experience in any way to like amplify their voices. But I think one thing is the fact that I'm from like small town in South Mississippi, and so a lot of people in that community haven't been in support of this movement and believe in police brutality. So I think it's taken people knowing me personally to finally believe like police brutality is real,
Yeah.
which it just goes to show like how important Black Lives Matter is as a movement, because people are not believing Black people. So that's why I'm talking about this, and that's why I'm like using my platform, because education and advocacy are so important.
So
So
you grew up in Mississippi, but now you're in
yes, yeah, I just graduated from USC by
LA.
non-traditions. Thank you.
And so you went to a protest that I'm sure you thought was pretty peaceful.
Mhm.
Where was the protest at?
In downtown LA.
And what was your
Yeah. Um, I, well, one, to be honest, I'm like, I apologize if I like sound drained talking about it, just like
no, imagine for
but
real?
um, yeah, I was peacefully protesting downtown with some of my friends. We were out there around like 4, and that's when they changed the curfew from 6 p.m. to 5 p.m. Which one, like, I don't even think there should be like curfew enforcement, and like there has to be like better protest response. But um, so I was protesting peacefully, which I know hasn't been true for like every protest, but like there's like so many videos, to prove that this was a peaceful protest. And kind of as people are trying to leave, like we notice that we're being like cornered. Like we do go down a street and there's a line of police officers there. We go down another and there's police officers there. And then pretty soon, like we notice that we're being closed in on. And my friends, like actually they got away, like they started running away. But my grandma has always told me like never run in front of the police. Like you don't want to give them any intent to shoot or attack. And there actually were some people who were like had multiple people like jump on them, tase them, um and just we were so outnumbered.
Yeah.
Yeah, really I actually was like FaceTiming my friend on the phone because I was like, oh, like in case anything happens, like whatever. And I was like, oh, but I think I'll be able to like get away, because I saw like an alley, and I was like, okay, like maybe I can go out that way, or also like because I'm gonna like show I'm being completely like compliant, like I'm on my knees, like my hands are in the air, like whatever, like surely everything's gonna be okay. Like I feel like I've done what I can to show that I'm credible. And I'm like FaceTiming him and he's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And then I looked up and that alley just like filled with officers. And then at the same time, it was just like them filing in and like closing in. So, and then my phone died.
Were they closing in on? Like how many? Was it just you and your friends, or was it?
No, it was like there was like a group of us. So, which I like shared on my Instagram. You can see like us in the middle of the street and then just like the amount of officers around us. And then my phone died. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And we were individually, they took us individually and like zip tied cuffed us and like put us up against a wall. And I've like learned that a lot of different people had like different screening processes. Like some girls were like, oh, like I was like, patted down by a male officer. I was patted down by a female officer, but I was patted down 4 times, throughout the course of my arrest. And like there's some girls who were like, oh, like that never happened. Like I was only patted down once, or like I didn't, experience the screening process, which I think that's another issue of just like the lack of uniformity and like
100%.
Like standards, yeah, and just like showing like police are not following guidelines.
Down by all 4 different officers?
Yes, 4 different officers. But the whole time, like just when I was standing at the wall, like I'm like zip tied facing the wall, and there's like about 2 officers per person. So they're watching me the entire time. They know I'm not going anywhere. And like to still be patted down, it's like, why was that even necessary? And the first lady, she didn't even like pat down where my pockets were. And my phone was still in my pocket. And so she just like patted me in my like private areas. And I was like, oh, by the way, my phone's also in my pocket. Cause I was like, I don't want them to be like, oh, like, where's,
Right.
So we were there for a long time. And I was like saying in my head, like, okay, I'm not going to say anything because I know anything I say can and will be held against, but then I was like, wait, no one's told me anything, like no Miranda rights.
They didn't Miranda rights.
Yeah. And I asked, I was like, oh, like after a while I was like, what are my rights? Like, what are the next steps? Like, what am I being written up for? Like, where am I being taken to? For a while, they like couldn't even say what we were being written up for. It wasn't until like the supervisor came and was like, oh, write them up for being past curfew. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they were like, oh, I think you're going to be taken to a jail like downtown. Like, we're not really sure. And so I was like, okay, like I won't be able to like use someone else's phone to let them know where I'm going, like whatever. And then we were placed on the bus, and like the different cages. I was in like a cage with like a larger group of people, which I guess I'm fortunate. And that way there's some people who were like crammed into like single cell and like double cells. And they drove in a car. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like in cages in a car?
Yeah, like in a giant bus.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's about like 30-40 people like per bus. We were parked for a super long time. I don't know if it's because they didn't know where to take us, but then where we were taken was like the parking lot by the National Cemetery. And I've since been told that the people who like own that property, like they like offered it for COVID testing, and like they had no idea, like the fire department apparently, which I can't confirm what they actually didn't know, but yeah, that it was going to be used for that. And so I was arrested around 6, and then I wasn't released from the bus till around like midnight. And I know there's been other girls who were released even later. So yeah.
What were the conditions? Like, what was going through your head when you were on the bus? Because clearly it's fucked up to begin with, to feel like, you're protesting, you're looking down an alley, there's police, and you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. If
Yeah.
a swarm of police officers are not there to protect you, they're there to come at you. Clearly something's wrong. So how did you feel on the bus?
Yeah. Um,
The whole time, correct?
yeah, like I a lot of it was like me like trying to stay positive, and like I was like, let me just channel this energy, because it's like I know that this happens to people, right? That it's like you can be like, you don't have to be in the wrong to be treated this way, and like that most, that happens for, people in the Black community, predominantly. um but I was just like kind of in shock, but I was like, okay, like let me try to stay positive. Like some of us were like, oh, like maybe we can play a game or like whatever, but there were like so many moments where I was like just trying to take a deep breath and like stay like, like stay focused. And it was hard when like other girls were, some girls, handled it better than others, but some like people were having panic attacks, and some people who hadn't had their medication were like, I need my medication. Like I think like when things really took a turning point for me was when so there was like a homeless woman who I saw her like arrested from the street, and she was also mentally ill. She was like sitting toward the front of the bus, so a lot of the girls like in the back like didn't know that she was there. um but like I like noticed her there before, and I could just like hear her like having a panic attack and like calling for help. And I talked to the girls who were like right behind her, and they're like, we need to like do something. So I was like, how do we, one, bring attention to this, but also like, there was no officer on board, so we're like, is there any way, yeah, like is there any way we can know where we are? Like we're peeking out the window, I don't know, like can we know where we are, can we know what's going on, all these things. And so we start like calling for help and like banging, trying to make like a lot of noise to bring an officer on. And then that's when they just like turn on the radio and like crank it up all the way. And like that's when a lot of, that was like a really hard part for me, just like not even hearing my thoughts. um do I
I said, holy shit, like that would cause me so much anxiety.
Yeah, and I like, this is dumb, but I had just finished watching Ozark, great show, a few days before, and like I remember when I can't remember his name, but like Jason Bateman's character was like, they like used like music as like a form of torture of just being like trapped and like having like music blaring. So I was like, okay, I need to take deep breath. Like I know this is like strategic. um but then yeah, like more girls started having panic attacks, and we were like, hey, we need to get someone like on board. So we were like, have someone at the front just like say like medical attention, like just to be as clear as possible. So they come on board, and they take off like one girl who was having a panic attack. That one homeless woman like didn't even like receive help. We like assumed they would come back on, because some girls were like, I need to use the bathroom. Like I know some other buses, like some of the girls were like, I literally pissed myself, and they like took photos of it. Um, and they didn't come back on board. They like, I think, I can't remember how much longer it was after that until we finally were released. And then at that point, I was like, my phone has been dead for hours. Like I asked an officer, like, is there any way I can like use a phone charger or like borrow your phone to call someone? And he was like, sorry, like you're gonna have to figure it out yourself. Yeah, and I was like, okay, like great, like sure, like send a bunch of like young women like up a hill into an unknown neighborhood, and like hopefully, hopefully we don't get kidnapped. And like I've been trying to like, reach out to all the girls that were there that night. And like also, if any of them are watching, I'm gonna post a Google form in my Instagram bio. Like I've been seeing in my comments like people are like sharing what happened to them. So I want to like try to consolidate all of that, and yeah, just like get those voices heard. And also like people who are seeking like legal counsel, I want to try to help in any way with that. So if you are watching or know someone, like please direct them to that. But I just want to make sure everyone's accounted for and like taken care of. um but yeah, when I went up the hill, there was like a woman who was like, oh, I heard about what's happening, like I like will give like anyone a ride. I know you don't know me, but like, so thankfully she like proved to be friendly. Like I don't know if that's true, if everyone who was offering, but yeah.
Right. Wow. So this, how many days ago did this happen?
This was on Monday.
And do you feel like you can't go to any more protests? Do you feel discouraged or do you feel fired up about it?
Um, I
Probably
was,
both. I
yeah,
mean,
I was gonna say like a combination of both.
yeah.
Like I definitely feel I like noticed like the next day I like saw a police officer and I was like just had like fear, just like a fear that I haven't had before. And like even when I was in high school, like I worked my senior year, I like worked at a prison, and so like I've had relationships, you know, with officers and stuff before, and so like it was just like such a new feeling, and that fear of knowing like, oh, like you don't care how credible I am, how innocent I am, like your like instinct is, you know, to resort to violence, which is only like a small feeling of what I'm sure people in the Black community feel all the time. So I'm definitely going to be back out protesting 100%. Yeah.
I think, I mean, I went to a protest earlier at Pan Pacific Park, and it was really incredible. A lot of really beautiful speakers, and I think the biggest takeaway from that well, there was a lot of takeaways, but obviously my biggest thing right now that's in my head is defunding the LA. It's insane when you look at the budget of the LAPD versus the budget of like everything else.
Yeah.
That that Mayor Garcetti, I mean, how accountable he is, I really don't. I'm not educated on that, but like, you know, if this is something that's he can control, he can change, but I don't know, it's something $1 billion that are given to the LAPD and they cut, I could totally be making these numbers up, but I think like $135 million from the LAPD budget, which is like 3% of their
Yeah.
budget. So, you know, it's, you know, that's like a very small step forward. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think obviously like hearing your story and having other people, it's why I thought it was important for you to come on here and talk about your experience to know that like this is police brutality. This is people being arrested and then being held there because the police are trying to come up with a reason why they arrested you in the first place.
Yeah.
And I just think, I mean, I commend you obviously for being on the front lines of that protest and standing up for what you believe, obviously. And I think, unfortunately, yours is just one out of many stories of people who have been dealing with this, not only with the LAPD but with other police officers around
Yeah.
the country. But I saw a girl, I think last night. Maybe you posted about it. I'm not sure. She, you know, officers were cutting their zip tied handcuffs off with like a knife and her hand was sliced open. Like it's just seems to be this carelessness.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of words for it, but I think, um, you know, and the fact that you were left on a bus with no bathroom, with no, I'm sure, no food or water is just dehumanizing and traumatizing. So I'm very sorry to hear that you went through that. That's insane. And it also just, I mean, I think it's important for you to keep talking about it and telling your story and talking to other girls who had the same experience, and let's kind of like amplify your voices to show people that something needs to change in not only in the LAPD but, you know, everywhere else. But the fact that the LAPD has so much funding is
Mm-hmm.
believe. And even at the protest I was at earlier, there was a police helicopter circling almost the entire time, and it was so loud you could like barely hear the people speaking, and it was like, those are our tax funding this, the fuel in this helicopter, so the
Yeah.
keep tabs and make sure that, you know, we're being monitored, I guess. And it was just kind of like, yes,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
I agree. No, and I think like, and there's people who are like far more versed to speak on this than I am. So I do think it's like really important that people are going like directly to like Black Lives Matter. It's like their social medias and their websites and what they're saying. But like the biggest thing that I'm wanting to share with people is like, yeah, we need to defund the police. Like there's no other way to strip them of like the power that they hold, and like reforms, additional training, you know, which is different things people have been talking about. Like that also could mean like more money in their pockets and like I have no reason to believe it'd be spent in good faith. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that the police were able to be militarized under a span of 24 hours when the president took weeks and weeks, I mean, leading on months to properly like protect healthcare workers during, you know, the onslaught of COVID-19.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that money should go to education, healthcare, the homelessness crisis. Like I know, like you were saying, like there's I think like 3 billion that's gone toward, you know, LAPD,
But
and
we
like
word COVID testing in the United States for everyone. So
yeah,
cool. Good to see where you're.
yeah,
This is literally funding racism at this point.
hmm yeah,
And I think as long as you keep telling your story, it's important, because people need to know. People need to know what's happening behind these closed doors, and not everything is going to be caught on video. And and I think it's good. It's obviously good that we live in a day and age where we can pull out our phones and confront the situation and show people proof.
yeah.
But obviously, just keep talking about what happened to you. And thank you for talking to my audience about it as well. I think people are still trying to catch up to the idea that police are not always doing the right thing. That's hard for people to stomach, but
hmm
that's the nature of things right now. And so yeah, so thank you again for sharing what happened to you, and I'm so sorry that you went through that. That's insane to me.
Well, thank you for using your letting me on this platform, but also just using your platform for, you know, advocating for all of this. Like my experience with LAPD showed me that the police I encountered did what they did because they're protected by a system that has no accountability, like provides no incentive for law enforcement to, you know, even abide by the law
Yeah.
themselves, and is inherently racist, like you were saying. So like beyond the context of like this protest and like this specific arrest, which is like again like so much smaller than, you know, what, you know, so many people in the Black community have experienced, like so many more brutal and like horrific acts of police violence against Black people go undocumented and unaccounted for daily. Like we happen to get this on video. So just to think about my experience, it's just a small taste of what's going on. Like, oh, we were lucky that, you know, but I'm lucky that this has got this much volume and like there's this much, you know, proof. But I think it's important to stay focused on Black lives at stake, and like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, you know, Ahmaud, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. Like we need to keep saying their names and like also find the names of those who've been muted
Yeah.
in all of this. So
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you. I just want to drive home, defund the police. Also, young people, you have, like, I know a lot of your demographic is like younger people, including myself, big fan. Um, but like, I strongly encourage like everyone to get out there and vote in local elections. Like, we are getting like more and more involved in like voting for the president and paying attention to that. But like, voting for, like you were saying, like Mayor Garcetti, like he holds a lot of accountability and responsibility for what's happening. The mayors, the DAs, attorney generals, congressmen, like with, especially with police brutality, like they're the ones that have such a big impact on this. So we have to get more involved in that.
Oh,
Yeah. And just like an example to show of like the power of local elections, Ella Jones was just voted and elected like the first Black female mayor in Ferguson County, the same city where, you know, Michael Brown was shot in 2014. So like that is powerful. So keep sharing, keep spreading. Thank you again for having me.
or
And
stay
yeah,
safe there when you continue to protest, but also keep sharing your story. It's really important.
yes, maybe we'll see each other at a protest.
I'll see you out there.
All right, bye. Take care.
Bye.